Right, Michelle. You've told me this is the fun one.
Oh, yeah.
We've done some heavier ones, but let's a light one. So the whole area of the arts. Let me throw a couple of things out there,
Okay.
and I just love you to offload and download and whatever other type of load you have. Um, in the book that I wrote by the arts, I talk about it, and I'd love to get your reflection on this. I talk about it as particularly touching the imagination.
hmm
So, here we are, you and I, let's just theory say we disagree. I argue my point, you argue your point. My argument be longer and stronger and or not. But maybe we change, maybe we don't. What about the whole area of the arts and creativity?
hmm
Does it go to a different level, a deeper level? How do you see that?
I think more than probably any other level, especially in Western society, because we are such linear cultures, we are taught linear thinking. That's the style of education, right? That most of us come through, and that the arts um, and creativity, there's been a love hate relationship in some ways with the church throughout history because people who are creative or who are artists don't usually fit inside the nice, neat boxes in the way that we would like them to, in terms of a religious structure. And so that can be when whatever we can't systematize, we either eh, not everything, but a lot of things. If we can't systematize it, we
Yeah.
either pathologize it or we mythologize it. And
And do you see that particularly as within the religious structures?
I do not not necessarily in terms of theological, but in terms of culture and the culture of the religious structures, the organizational culture, if you will. And because creativity is all about I just was in fabulous 2-day seminar with Seth Godin, who's one of the largest names in marketing, and it was on creativity and marketing, and he said something that I thought was really quite brilliant. And he's like, we have to, and I'm paraphrasing, we have to break the perfect in order to do the impossible.
Huh.
And I think we like perfection a lot in
Yeah.
our cultures, especially our religious cultures. And so, creativity, we have a lot of beliefs around creativity in the arts that are actually not true. So, here's one. Have you ever heard the term right brained or left brained?
Yeah. Sure. 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 Yeah.
Sure. So, left brained is logical,
Yeah. I've heard
math.
that. Yeah.
Okay. Right brained is all the creativity and the
Mm.
colors and the yeah, not true. Not true at all. Um, so one of my side hobbies to read on is neuroscience. I'm a weirdo, I know. And neuroscientists, we now have these fabulous things called PET scans. And so they're able to see literally what parts of the brain light up for what things. And creativity doesn't live on one side of your brain. Creativity is actually a set of different thought processes, brain functions that live all over your brain. And it's the way that they interact, and it's it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And um, I really believe when we allow creativity to have its place, not just in a in an organization or in a church, but in our own lives,
Yeah.
um, you're opening up space for God to be God in ways that you may not encounter any other way because we first came to know him as the creator who was speaking the world into being. And because we're made in his image, creativity is our birthright. And it's not something, and here's the other thing is, and maybe you've even thought this, maybe some of our friends that are watching have thought this. Oh, that person, they're so good, they're so creative, I'm just not creative.
Yeah. I've heard that. I've said that. So I've heard it.
Yeah, well, creativity, it's not. it's not like a trait, like you have blue eyes or,
Mhm.
you know, that's it's not a trait, it's a skill. And
Mm.
creativity is actually, can you get better at divergent thinking by practicing? Yeah, you can. Creativity, some people may be more wired and have easier access to it somewhat because of maybe some of the experiences in their world or their natural abilities
Mm.
that just kind of lead them in that direction a little bit more, but it's not a gifting,
Okay.
okay? It's a skill set. And skills can be practiced and they can be developed and they can
Mhm.
be honed. Mhm.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah,
So,
so any of your friends that are saying they're not creative, yeah, not
okay.
true. You're made in God's image. You're creative.
All right. And a big, small question, but a big subject. In God, what do you see the purpose of creativity among humans for?
Mhm.
I'll give you a background. So,
Okay.
in certain cultures you grew up, my cultural background is certain things had value, certain things did not have value.
Mhm.
So, color, creativity really didn't have value because what does it do? It doesn't put food on your table, doesn't what it doesn't do something practical, doesn't work
Mhm.
the land. So, here you and I would both say God's a creator. He
Mhm.
makes the trees, are good to look at. We're in the image of God. Paul talks about we are his poem,
Mhm.
all that writing, etc., etc.
Poema.
Poema. What does creativity do in our world? Where
Mhm.
does it fit? I don't like the term "in the kingdom of God," but you know what I mean. Where does it fit in God's kind of plan and purpose?
That's a huge question. And
Yeah.
it's a huge, yeah, it's a huge question. And two different ways to look at it that immediately come to mind. One, if you say, what's the value of creativity? My response would be, well, what's the value of a heart that's fully alive?
Hmm.
Because it's part of how we're created.
Yeah.
And so when we divorce that part of ourselves, because I was raised in the
Yeah.
same kind of a structure as you. In fact, I wanted to either be a lawyer or a doctor growing up. Like I'm incredibly
Yeah.
left brained,
Yeah.
right? And because that was the skill set I developed. And yeah, I was also really creative,
Yeah.
and but I never allowed myself to really embrace that creativity completely fully until I was in Africa. And creativity, not only did it help put food on our table because you're communicating, you're telling stories,
Hmm.
it's storytelling is actually one of the first human technologies, if you will, that's God given. And so creativity helped actually bring in the resources that were needed to do the work of the kingdom, so to speak. Um, but it was being around these kids and watching the healing and the resilience and the beautiful things that came into their lives when they stepped into their creativity that actually helped me step and embrace more
Oh,
of my
wow.
own. And then the other thing about creativity that is so God just
Hmm.
is when we're creative, and there's been scientists and neurologists and neuroscience people that have studied this and organizational experts, and there's something that happens, even we would call the soul,
Hmm.
in our souls, that when we embrace creativity and creative pursuits, it hardwires resilience into us in a way that we don't have really access to any other way, and that they know of at least. And so every act in walking with God is a
Hmm.
creative one.
Yeah.
Every miracle is a creative miracle.
Hmm.
Every vision is a creative insight. Everything about who God is and our relationship with him is creative. And if we don't acknowledge that and embrace that, we are missing out on some of the things Jesus paid for.
Brilliant. Okay, last little question because I only have little ones. But the last little question, yeah, sure. Um, you're a person's an artist. And there are artists who sell their paintings, their sculptures, their artwork
Mhm.
for, you know, huge sums of money. But the vast majority, painting away, working away, creating away, whatever area they're working in, and really they can't make much of a living out of it. What would you say to them?
Well, number one, thinking the paradigm of a starving artist in today's world, in today's technology, doesn't have to be the truth.
Okay.
And there are so many. I work with artists as a content strategist, and so I work. My bread and butter is I work with artists and creatives to be able to help them understand how to get their art out there. And so the real work begins on finding your niche, finding the people that value what it is you're creating in a way. And there's lots of way to get that out there now.
Mhm.
Case in point, it used to be when you're an artist, you'd be painting away in your studio or your kitchen table, wherever you painted.
Mhm.
And maybe one day in 20 years, a gallery might pick up one painting, and
Yeah.
then a collector might find one painting. That's not how it happens. If you have an internet connection and a smartphone, you can sell art these days because there are multiple print on demand sites. There are multiple avenues of getting your art out there. So, painted that the other day.
Yeah.
Nice little abstract. It's going to get scanned in a scanner. There's apps that can do it in your smartphone if you don't have a scanner. And I could put that up on a print on demand site and start selling it immediately, where somebody else prints it and ships it. And this is the first time in all of human history that anybody who wants to access information and has a smartphone can access that information. So it's not a scarcity of platform that exists anymore. It's now about learning how to navigate and how to find the right people that really resonate with what the message and the creativity and the mediums are that you're using. Mhm.
Hey. So what you're saying is we could be, or we're in, an explosion of creativity in our world.
It's in 2010, IBM, who is a computer tech land, not typically
Mhm.
thought of as super creative. IBM, they do a I'm not sure if it's annually or like every few years, but they do a periodic survey of CEOs. And so they in 30 plus industries all over the world. Like in 2010, now I realize we are in a new decade, but I still think it implies more than ever. In 2010, the survey said the number one skill that was needed by leaders in the next decade was going to be creativity.
Wow.
And so we have access to the creator.
Yeah.
So that means we shouldn't be behind the ball, we should be leading it.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I'm sure that is a deep encouragement to many. So, Michelle, thank you. And we'll be back another day.